At my dad's promotion party, he lifted his glass and bragged, "Only the kids who lived up to my name are my real family." Everyone laughed and clapped. Then he turned to me, "You don't belong here, go home." I started to stand and walk out until my husband rose beside me. What he did next turned the entire celebration into the most uncomfortable moment of my dad's career. I will never forget the look on my father's face, a twisted mask of shock and disbelief, the moment my husband, Liam, stood up to him. His words, meant to crush me, instead ignited a fire that burned down everything I thought I knew about family. It all happened last spring at my dad Elias's promotion party. A glittering, exclusive affair in a fancy banquet hall. It was supposed to be his triumphant night. Instead, it became the night my entire world shattered, then began to rebuild piece by painful piece. My name is Nova. I'm 32. And what Liam did that night? Well, you want to hear this. Growing up, success wasn't just celebrated in our affluent Boston suburb. It was demanded. Our colonial house, with its perfect lawn, looked like a postcard. But inside, it was a different story entirely. My father, Elias Harrington, was a banking executive who measured love like it was a commodity, doled out disappointment like candy. My mom, Serafina, was beautiful and quiet, caught in his shadow. She'd offer me hushed comfort after his tirades, but never openly defied him. When breast cancer took her at 20, that fragile buffer between me and my father's impossible expectations just vanished. My siblings, Ethan and Sophia, were his golden children. Ethan, years older, followed Dad into finance, a Wharton grad, climbing the ladder fast. Sophia, 2 years my senior, became a cardiosurgeon, collecting accolades like they were going out of style. They were the real Harringtons, the ones who made our last name mean something, as Dad constantly reminded me. Then there was me. I escaped into books, into art. I still remember my 12th birthday recital. Family friends filled our living room, and I was playing Debussy's Clair de Lune. My fingers trembled. I hit one wrong note, just one. My father stood up, straightened his tie, and simply walked out. The front door clicked shut. The room went silent. I finished the piece, tears blurring my vision, but I finished it. That moment, it defined our relationship. One mistake was all it took to be deemed unworthy. College was my escape, a temporary reprieve. I studied literature at Amherst, completely ignoring Dad's insistence on business school. "You're throwing your life away on fairy tales," he scoffed when I showed him my acceptance letter. I went anyway, piecing together scholarships and part-time jobs because he refused to pay for a useless degree. Those years taught me independence, but they also cemented the anxiety and self-doubt. I'd accomplished something I was so proud of, only to hear his voice echo in my head, asking why it wasn't more. My relationships were always fleeting. I'd either pick men who mirrored my father's criticisms, or I'd push away the good ones before they could discover I wasn't enough. And then, 3 years ago, everything changed. I was in a small Cambridge bookstore, reaching for the last copy of a rare Jane Eyre edition, when my hand brushed someone else's. I looked up and saw Liam Taylor, kind eyes, a warm smile that made something inside me settle for the first time. "You take it," he insisted. "Anyone hunting for Bronte deserves it more than me." We talked for hours at the coffee shop next door. Liam, a software engineer, loved literature almost as much as I did. He listened, truly listened, without checking his watch or preparing his next argument. When I hesitantly mentioned my dream of starting a publishing house for overlooked authors, he didn't laugh. He asked thoughtful questions about my business plan. 6 months later, with Liam's unwavering encouragement and his help with financial projections, I launched Lighthouse Press. We specialized in literary fiction by diverse voices, starting small. By year 2, one of our books won a regional award, and we were publishing 6 titles annually. It wasn't making me rich, but it was making me incredibly proud. Liam and I married in a small, beautiful ceremony at the Boston Public Library. My father didn't show, claimed an important business meeting. Ethan sent an expensive but impersonal gift. Only Sophia came, and she practically sprinted out right after the ceremony for a conference. "They don't deserve you," Liam whispered as we danced, surrounded by his friends and loving family instead of mine. I hadn't spoken more than a few words to my father in nearly 2 years when the invitation arrived. After a record-breaking quarter, Elias Harrington was being elevated to Chief Global Strategist, a newly created role that solidified his absolute power at First Atlantic Bank. There'd be a formal celebration at the Hawthorne, Boston's most exclusive restaurant. "We don't have to go," Liam said, watching my hands tremble as I read the thick, cream-colored card. But I convinced myself. Maybe this is his way of reaching out, I said, even though I didn't truly believe it. Maybe now that he's reached this new peak, things will be different. The night of the party, I stood before a bedroom mirror in a navy blue dress that cost more than I'd usually spend. Hair styled, makeup carefully applied to hide the shadows under my eyes from a week of stress-induced insomnia. "You look beautiful," Liam said, adjusting his tie. "I feel like I'm going to throw up," I admitted. A full-blown panic attack hit just as we were about to leave. Liam sat with me, coaching me through breathing exercises, his hand making slow, comforting circles on my back. "We can still cancel," he reminded me. "No," I said, reapplying my lipstick with shaking hands. "I need to do this. I need to try one more time." As we drove, Liam squeezed my hand. "Remember, no matter what happens tonight, you have people who love you for exactly who you are." I nodded, wishing I could truly believe him. Decades of conditional love had taught me otherwise. Deep down, a part of me still thought I needed to earn the right to be loved. Tonight was one more chance to finally make my father proud. The Hawthorne stood like a beacon, its historic facade glowing. My heels clicked against the cobblestone, each step a grim countdown. "Remember to breathe," Liam whispered, his hand steady at the small of my back. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over 70 people. A string quartet played softly, almost lost beneath the polite laughter of Boston's elite. I spotted Ethan immediately, holding court near the bar. At 36, he was a mirror image of our father. Tailored suit, confident stance, surrounded by admiring colleagues. "Nova," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Didn't think you'd make it?" He offered Liam a brief, dismissive handshake before turning back to his group. "This is my little sister and her husband. Nova does something with books, don't you?" Before I could even answer, he was launching into another finance story. Liam gave my hand a gentle squeeze as we quietly excused ourselves. We found Sophia near the hors d'oeuvres table, elegant in a red dress, flashing an enormous diamond engagement ring. "June wedding at the plaza," she was saying. "Thomas wanted Tuscany, but I told him the humidity would be terrible for photos." She spotted me. "Nova, you came." Her eyes flicked over my dress with a subtle, practiced assessment. Navy is so reliable. She introduced us to her fiancé, Thomas, a neurosurgeon with perfect teeth and a Harvard accent. The conversation, of course, revolved entirely around them until Sophia excused herself for more important guests. "Your siblings are exactly as advertised," Liam murmured, a dry wit I adored. Then a bony hand on my arm. Aunt Eleanor, my father's sister. Her hug smelled of expensive perfume and judgment. "Nova, darling," she air-kissed. "You look healthy." That slight pause, that single word, spoke volumes. She leaned closer. "Try to make him proud tonight. It's important to him, especially with all his colleagues here celebrating this incredible achievement." Before I could respond, she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. The banquet room itself was a blatant showcase of wealth. Crystal vases, white roses, top-shelf liquor, caviar. Conversations revolved around stock portfolios, vacation homes, private schools. I finally spotted my father, commanding attention in a circle of distinguished men. At 65, Elias remained imposing, silver hair, patrician features. He laughed at something one of them said, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a warmth I'd rarely, if ever, experienced directed at me. Liam sensed my hesitation. "Wanting to come with you?" I shook my head. I should do this alone. Taking a deep breath, I approached. He saw me, but continued his conversation until I stood awkwardly at the edge of his circle. Finally, he acknowledged me. "Nova, you made it." His tone suggested mild surprise, not pleasure. "Congratulations on the promotion," I said, offering the gift bag with an expensive fountain pen Liam helped me pick out. "Thank you." He accepted it without even glancing inside. "Gentlemen, my youngest, Nova. She's in publishing. I own my own small press, actually," I added, trying to sound confident. "We just had an author shortlisted for the Massachusetts Book Award." My father's expression didn't change. Nova always had her head in the clouds, playing with books, while her siblings took on real careers. The men chuckled obligingly. "Speaking of, Ethan just closed a $40 million deal, and Sophia is engaged to Dr. Thomas Whitfield, chief resident at Mass General." The message was clear, a punch to the gut. Their accomplishments mattered. Mine did not. "It was nice seeing you," I said quietly, retreating before the tears stinging my eyes could fall. Liam was waiting with a fresh glass of wine. "That bad?" "The usual," I managed, taking a large sip. When it was time for dinner, we were placed at a table far from the main one, surrounded by distant relatives and junior colleagues. "I'm Liam Taylor, Nova's husband," he introduced cheerfully, completely undeterred. "You're Elias's daughter?" an older woman asked, her tone a curious assessment. "The one who isn't a doctor or banker?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "I run a publishing company." "How nice," she said, with the condescending tone one might use for a child's crayon drawing. "A hobby business." Throughout the three-course meal, I watched my father. He placed a proud hand on Ethan's shoulder, beamed at Sophia. A side of him I'd simply never known. Liam squeezed my hand under the table, his silent support the only thing keeping me from walking out. After dessert, the formal speeches began. The bank CEO spoke about my father's contributions, his vision, his leadership. A longtime colleague shared humorous anecdotes. Ethan gave a polished speech about our father's professional legacy, somehow managing to make it primarily about himself. Then it was my father's turn. The room quieted. My heart beat faster, hoping against hope that this public reflection on his life might, just might, include some small acknowledgement of me. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly. Looking around this room, I see not just colleagues, but friends who have been part of a journey spanning 4 decades at First Atlantic Bank, and now a new chapter begins. He spoke eloquently about changes, challenges, successes. He thanked mentors, acknowledged those he had mentored. The crowd was rapt. This reflective, almost warm version of Elias Harrington was utterly unfamiliar. "None of this would have been possible," he continued, his voice dropping slightly, "without the support of my late wife, Serafina." My breath caught. He rarely mentioned my mother. "Serafina understood the sacrifices necessary for success," he said, a slight crack in his voice. "She was my foundation during the difficult early years, and I only wish she could be here tonight to see what her support helped build." Tears formed in my eyes. This was the most emotion I'd seen from him in years. Perhaps this new position had opened something long closed within him. He cleared his throat, composure returning. But a man's true legacy isn't measured in dollars or deals alone. It's measured in what he leaves behind, in who carries forward his values and vision, ensuring his influence continues for generations. My heart lifted. Was this it? Would he finally see me? Acknowledge my different, but valid, path now that his own success was so undeniable? "I've been blessed in that regard," he continued, gesturing toward the main table. "Ethan has exceeded every expectation, becoming not just an investment banker, but a true financial innovator. The Reynolds merger alone would be career-defining for most, but for him, it's just another achievement in a portfolio of excellence." And Sophia, his voice swelled with pride, saving lives daily as one of Boston's premier surgeons. Just last month, performing a groundbreaking procedure featured in medical journals. Intelligence, discipline, precision, everything I tried to instill. Sophia smiled demurely. My father raised his glass higher. "So tonight, as I embark on this new chapter of my life, I look with satisfaction at what matters most. My real children are the ones who made me proud." The room burst into applause. People smiled at Ethan and Sophia. I sat frozen, the words hitting me like physical blows. My real children. As if I wasn't his child at all. But worse was coming. As the applause died down, his gaze swept the room and landed directly on me. "You can leave," he said, his voice perfectly audible in the now quiet room. At first, some guests looked confused. Then, heads turned, murmurs rippled. My father had just publicly disowned me, right at the height of his public celebration. My chest constricted painfully. The elegant room blurred, my vision tunneling. Blood rushed in my ears, drowning out everything except his cold stare and those 3 devastating words. Aunt Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Even she hadn't expected this level of cruelty. Sophia studied her manicure, unbothered. Ethan wore a slight, almost imperceptible smirk. The silence stretched, unbearable. Dozens of eyes bored into me, witnessing my humiliation. My legs felt like lead as I slowly pushed back my chair and stood, limbs trembling. The scrape of the chair sounded abnormally loud. Shame burned through me like acid. This wasn't just another private disappointment. This was public rejection, brutal and undeniable. I gripped the edge of the table, desperately fighting the urge to run or burst into tears. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. If I had to leave, I would do so with whatever dignity I could muster. Then came the sound that changed everything. The scrape of another chair beside me. Liam stood, deliberate, unhurried. His face, when I glanced at him through my haze of humiliation, showed not embarrassment, but a quiet, simmering fury. A confused murmur spread. My father's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. He hadn't anticipated resistance. "Sit down," my father commanded, addressing Liam directly. "This doesn't concern you." But Liam didn't sit. He straightened to his full height, shoulders back, gaze locked with my father's across the room. The tension was palpable. No one moved. No one spoke. And then Liam did something that would forever divide my life into before and after. He reached for his water glass and a spoon. The soft ping of metal against crystal cut through the thick silence, drawing every single eye. It was a universal signal for attention before toast. My father's face flushed with anger. This was his night, his triumphant promotion, his carefully orchestrated display of power. Liam had just challenged that, in the most civilized yet unmistakably defiant way. "What do you think you're doing?" my father demanded, his voice losing some of its authority. Liam ignored him, waiting until the room was completely silent, every guest frozen. "I'd like to make a toast," Liam began, his voice clear and carrying across the stunned room. "To the woman Elias Harrington failed to see." Gasps rippled. My heart hammered against my ribs. For those who don't know me, I'm Liam Taylor, Nova's husband. And since Elias has shared his perspective tonight, I'd like to share the truth about the daughter he just told to leave. My father stepped forward. "That's enough. Security will escort you out." "By all means," Liam replied evenly. But I wonder how the Boston Globe would report on Elias Harrington having his own daughter and son-in-law forcibly removed from his promotion party for a newly minted chief global strategist. I'm sure your banking colleagues would find that fascinating. My father froze, his gaze darting around the room. His reputation was paramount, especially now. Liam had found his leverage. 3 years ago, Liam continued. Nova founded Lighthouse Press with her own savings and a small business loan she qualified for without any family connections. Last year, they published Salt and Stone, which was not only shortlisted for the Massachusetts Book Award, but was just optioned for a film adaptation. Murmurs of interest swept through the crowd. This was news even to me. Liam must have gotten the call today, waiting to surprise me later. What Elias failed to mention is that Nova's Press has provided a platform for voices that major publishers overlooked, including veterans, immigrants, and yes, people who grew up in emotionally abusive homes. Liam never wavered, his gaze still locked on my father. Their literacy program has put books in the hands of over 3,000 underprivileged children in Boston's poorest neighborhoods. I felt a surreal detachment, like I was watching a scene in a movie. Liam was publicly defending me, cataloging achievements my father had dismissed or, more likely, never bothered to learn about. While Ethan was crushing it on Wall Street, and Sophia was advancing her medical career, it was Nova who took a leave of absence from college to care for her mother during cancer treatment. Nova who sat by Serafina's hospital bed, reading her favorite poems when she was too weak to hold a book herself. My throat tightened, a fresh wave of emotion. Those quiet hours with my mother had been sacred, private. What Elias doesn't know, Liam continued, his voice taking on an unmistakable edge, is that the down payment for Ethan's first New York apartment came from Nova's college fund. She gave it to him when his credit was destroyed after that gambling problem he worked so hard to hide from Daddy. Ethan's face drained of color. That had been our secret, a rare moment of real connection. When he'd come to me desperate, I'd helped him because, despite everything, he was my brother. I never expected anything in return. Certainly not for him to defend me against our father. For 32 years, Elias, you've told Nova she wasn't enough. Too sensitive, too artistic, too different from the path you prescribed. You've withheld affection, weaponized your approval, and tonight you've attempted to humiliate her in front of everyone who matters to you. Liam looked around the room, addressing the guests directly. But here's what you should know about family. Real family doesn't require performance reviews. Real family doesn't measure love and achievements. Real family sees you, supports you, and stands with you even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. My father finally found his voice, a choked gasp. You have no right to speak this way in front of my colleagues and friends. You don't know anything about our family. I know enough, Liam replied, his voice unwavering. I know that a man who publicly rejects his daughter at his promotion party isn't celebrating a legacy. He's revealing its bankruptcy. The room was so silent, I could hear eyes shifting in water glasses. No one moved. No one seemed to breathe. Liam turned to me then, his eyes softening, filled with a love I finally felt I deserved. Nova is the strongest person I know. Not because she met her father's impossible standards, but because she survived them and became herself anyway. He raised his water glass one final time, turning back to my father. So, thank you, Elias Harrington, for showing us exactly the kind of parent we'll never be. With that, Liam set down his glass and gently took my hand. The warmth of his fingers anchored me as the room spun with shock, embarrassment, and something else I couldn't yet identify, a nascent sense of freedom. Together, we walked toward the exit, our footsteps echoing on the marble floor. No one tried to stop us. No one spoke. The collective breath-holding of 70 stunned guests created a silence, so complete it seemed to have physical weight. As we neared the doors, my father's voice finally broke through, desperation creeping into his anger. If you walk out now, don't ever come back, he shouted. You're cut off. Do you understand? Both of you. We didn't slow, didn't turn. Liam's hand remained steady in mine. As we passed the last table, an elderly man I recognized as one of my father's longest-serving colleagues caught my eye. Almost imperceptibly, he nodded. A small gesture of respect, or perhaps solidarity. It was the first time anyone from my father's world had acknowledged me as something other than a disappointment. The doors closed behind us, muffling the explosion of conversation that erupted in our wake. The night air hit my flushed face like a blessing. Are you okay? Liam finally asked in the car. I wasn't. I was shattered, humiliated, and strangely, impossibly relieved. Something coiled tightly within me for decades had finally snapped, leaving me raw but somehow lighter. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I think I might be eventually. The emotional dam broke as soon as we entered our apartment. I collapsed onto the couch, violent sobs tearing through me as 3 decades of suppressed pain erupted. Liam held me without speaking, his shirt damp with my tears, his arms steady. I'm sorry, I gasped. I'm so sorry you had to do that. I'm not, Liam said firmly. I wanted to say those things to your father for 3 years. He'll never forgive us. The thought brought fresh tears. Despite everything, a childish part of me had never stopped hoping. That's his loss, Liam said. And honestly, Nova, his forgiveness isn't worth having. We stayed up until 3 a.m. talking. The initial shock gave way to grief for the relationship I'd never have, anger at his cruelty, fear about repercussions, and underneath it all, a tentative sense of liberation. Do you think I overstepped? Liam asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. You stood up for me when no one ever has, I said, including me. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by my father calling 7 times between midnight and dawn, leaving increasingly angry voicemails. I let each go to voicemail. Morning brought a text from Sophia. You've always had to make everything about you. Dad's promotion was supposed to be his night. You and Liam ruined everything as usual. I stared at the message, realizing how differently we viewed the same event. In her reality, I was the villain. The twist came at 10:17 a.m. when Ethan called. That was quite a show last night, he said, his tone unreadable. I didn't plan it, I replied stiffly. A pause. I know. Another pause. Is it true what Liam said about the apartment money? Yes. Why didn't you ever throw that in my face? All these years, even when I was less than supportive. Because that's not why I helped you, I said simply. The silence stretched. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice smaller. I never thanked you properly for that. And I should have. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to solidarity he'd offered in years. At work that Monday, my boss, Brenda, took one look at my face and ushered me into her office. You look like you've been through a war, she said, pouring me coffee. Take the week off. We'll manage the Hopkins manuscript without you. I can't just stop working because of family drama, I protested. Nova, she said gently, if you'd broken your leg, you'd take time off to heal. Your father broke something inside you. That deserves the same consideration. I reluctantly agreed to 3 days, alternating between crying jags and numb television binging. Liam worked from home, keeping me company. On Thursday, the doorbell rang. Aunt Eleanor, clutching a large manila envelope, looked uncharacteristically uncertain. May I come in? She asked. What my brother did was unforgivable, she said without preamble. I should have said something that night, and I didn't. I've been enabling Elias's behavior for years. She handed me the envelope. Inside were old family photographs I'd never seen. My mother, pregnant with me, looking radiant. Toddling me on my father's shoulders, both of us laughing. He wasn't always like this, Aunt Eleanor said softly. After your mother got sick the first time, something changed in Elias. He became obsessed with control, with measurable success. It was as if by perfectly organizing his world, he could keep tragedy at bay. I studied the photos. Glimpses of a father I didn't recognize. That doesn't excuse what he's done. No, she agreed. It doesn't. But I thought you should know there was a time when he loved you unreservedly. 5 days after the party, my father's name on my caller ID triggered a panic attack. So severe Liam had to talk me through breathing exercises for 20 minutes. That night, he researched therapists specializing in family trauma and emotional abuse. You need professional support, he said. I selected Dr. Evelyn Reed. What if this breaks me completely? I asked Liam the night before my first appointment. You're not damaged, Nova. You're hurt. There's a difference. And sometimes things need to break open before they can heal properly. My father appeared unannounced at our apartment, building a week after the party. I've come to clear the air, he announced without greeting. That scene of my promotion was unacceptable. You told me to leave in front of everyone. I reminded him, my voice steadier than I expected. What did you think would happen? I expected you to respect my wishes. Instead, your husband created a spectacle that undermined my entire career celebration. Liam remained silent beside me, his presence a quiet strength. Did you come here to apologize? I asked. My father looked genuinely confused. Apologize for what? For being honest about my disappointment? I've given you every opportunity to make something of yourself, and you've rejected them all. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what Liam had been telling me for years. My father was simply incapable of seeing me as I actually was. He could only see the ways I failed to be who he wanted. I think you should go, I said quietly. I'm not finished, he snapped. I came to tell you that I've spoken with my attorney. If you and Liam don't make a public apology to me, you'll both be removed from my will. Is that clear? The old Nova would have crumbled, would have agreed to anything. But standing in my own home, with my husband beside me, surrounded by the life we'd built, I found a strength I hadn't known I possessed. "We don't want your money," I said. "We never did. What we wanted was your love, your acceptance. But I'm done trying to earn something that should have been freely given." My father's face hardened. "You'll regret this. When you're struggling to pay bills with your little book hobby, you'll wish you'd shown more respect." "I respect myself now," I said. "That's enough." He stormed out, slamming our door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. One fell, the frame cracking. It was a photo from our wedding day, Liam and I laughing as we fed each other cake. I knelt to pick it up, removing the broken glass. "Symbolic," I murmured. "What is?" Liam asked. "The only thing that broke was the frame. We're still intact." "Amanda, have you ever heard of emotional abuse?" Dr. Reed's simple question began a 3-month journey. She helped me see patterns I'd normalized: his conditional love, my siblings' roles, my own adaptive behaviors. "Healing isn't linear," she warned. "You'll have setbacks." She was right. But the low-dose anti-anxiety medication she suggested quieted the constant dread. Sleep came easier. I found myself laughing more freely. Meanwhile, Liam and I researched Portland. The vibrant literary scene. Progressive values. Physical distance. "Are we running away?" I asked. "We're running towards something," he corrected. Our decision solidified when Liam received an unexpected job offer from a Portland-based tech company developing publishing software. 6 months later, we were ready. Over coffee with Beatrix, my father's executive assistant for 15 years, she shared stories that confirmed my worst suspicions. His perfectionism and cutting remarks weren't limited to me. "Your husband's speech," she confided, "it resonated with many people who'd experienced your father's darker side. I watched you try to win the approval of a man who moves the goalposts every time someone gets close. I watched you blame yourself for his inability to show love, and I stayed silent." I'm not staying silent anymore. That conversation was unexpected validation. Reconnecting with cousins on my mother's side, I learned Serafina had been an artist, too, before she met my father. This glimpse into her unfulfilled creative ambitions felt like reclaiming a piece of my own identity. Months after the promotion party, giving a speech at a literary event about Lighthouse Press, I realized I was speaking confidently, without the constant internal editing and self-doubt. "You were magnificent," Liam said afterward. I didn't picture my father's disapproving face once. I marveled. It was a breakthrough. Ethan and I continued our tentative thaw. He called occasionally and confessed he'd started therapy himself. That night at Dad's promotion, he admitted, it forced me to look at some things I'd been avoiding. Like how I've spent my entire adult life chasing Dad's approval and how exhausting that is. In a therapy session, I finally expressed my rage toward my father, pouring out decades of hurt and anger in a letter I'd never sent. "I hate what you did to me. I hate that you made me believe I was fundamentally flawed. I hate that even now, part of me still craves your approval." The release was cathartic. I realized it had been weeks since I'd thought about him daily. His power over my emotional state was diminishing. As we packed our belongings for Portland, I found the envelope of old photographs Aunt Eleanor had given me. Looking at them now produced less pain. I packed them alongside newer photos. Liam and me hiking, our literary festival booth, dinner parties with friends who loved us exactly as we were. On our last night in the empty Boston apartment, Liam found me looking out at the city lights. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. "No," I said truthfully. "Just saying goodbye to the person I was here. The one who never felt good enough." "She was always good enough," Liam said. "She just couldn't see it yet." Portland welcomed us with unseasonable sunshine. 1 year after my father's promotion party, I stood in our new kitchen, cradling a glass of sparkling cider. Through the window, Liam grilled on our back deck, surrounded by new friends and chosen family. The past year brought changes I couldn't have imagined. Lighthouse Press flourished. My therapy sessions were now monthly check-ins. And most significantly, I was 4 months pregnant with our first child. "Need any help?" asked Aunt Eleanor, who had flown out for our housewarming. Her relationship with my father had grown strained after she continued maintaining contact with me. At 68, She'd finally decided to prioritize her own values. The doorbell rang. Ethan, looking travel-rumpled, but smiling tentatively. "Sorry I'm late," he said. He handed me an envelope. "I've been debating whether to show you this." Inside was a short article. Former First Atlantic Chief Global Strategist Elias Harrington hospitalized after minor stroke. "He's physically okay," Ethan added, seeing my expression. "But it's been a wake-up call. He's alone a lot now." I studied the photo. He looked older, diminished. "I'm sorry to hear he's unwell," I said honestly. But I didn't know what to do with the information. Today was about celebration, not reopening old wounds. As evening approached, Liam called for everyone's attention, raising his glass. 1 year ago, Nova and I made the best decision of our lives, moving to Portland. But the journey started earlier, with a moment of truth at a certain promotion party. That night could have broken us, but instead it freed us. He turned to me, his eyes soft. "To Nova, who taught me that real strength isn't about never falling, but about rising every time life knocks you down. And to all of you who've become our Portland family, thank you for welcoming us exactly as we are." Glasses clinked. Standing there, surrounded by genuine affection, I felt a completeness I'd spent decades searching for. The validation I desperately sought from my father had always been a mirage. Real acceptance, I'd learned, didn't require contorting myself to meet someone else's expectations. After guests departed, Ethan helped us clean up. "I have a confession," he said, folding a dish towel with unexpected precision. "I've been seeing a therapist for 8 months now." "That's great, Ethan," I said, genuinely pleased. "It's changing how I see everything." "Dad, myself, you." He leaned against the counter. "Did you know I was jealous of you growing up?" I nearly dropped the plate I was rinsing. "Jealous of me? You were the golden child." "I was the obedient child," he corrected. "I did everything Dad wanted and got his approval, sure. But you always knew who you were. Even when it cost you everything, you stayed true to yourself." I never had that kind of courage. We talked late into the night. When Ethan finally left, he hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry I wasn't a better brother," he whispered. "We're writing a new story now," I reminded him. "That's what matters." 2 weeks later, I had a chance encounter that crystallized how far I'd come. While visiting a friend in the hospital, I rounded a corner and nearly collided with my father. He looked startled, then wary. He'd lost weight, and a slight droop affected one side of his face. "Nova," he said, his voice rougher. "Dad," I replied, surprised by my steady calm. "Ethan mentioned you were having some health issues. I hope you're doing better." He nodded stiffly. "Just a checkup." We stood awkwardly. "You look different," he finally said. I smiled slightly. "I'm pregnant. Due in November." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, quickly suppressed. "I see. Congratulations." "Thank you." Another silence stretched between us, filled with decades of things unsaid. I realized I was waiting for something. An apology, perhaps. But his expression remained carefully neutral. "I should go," I said finally. "My friend is waiting." He nodded. "Give my regards to Liam." It was such a conventional pleasantry, so at odds with our last interaction, that I almost laughed. What struck me wasn't what had happened, but what hadn't. No accelerated heartbeat, no tunnel vision, no desperate need to make him love me. I'd spoken to my father as one adult to another, without the weight of my childhood wounds dictating my responses. "He'll never change," I told Liam that night. "Not fundamentally." "Probably not," Liam agreed. "Are you okay with that?" I considered the question. I think I am. For the first time, I truly understand that his limitations aren't my failure. In late November, our daughter, Lily Serafina Taylor, was born. Holding her for the first time, I was overwhelmed by a love so fierce and unconditional it brought tears to my eyes. "She's perfect," Liam whispered. Looking at her peaceful face, I made a silent promise. She would grow up knowing she was enough exactly as she was. Her worth would never be tied to achievements or conformity. She would be loved for her authentic self. Ethan flew in to meet his niece. "She has Mom's eyes," he observed. I told Dad about her. He hesitated. He didn't say much, but he asked to see a picture. I nodded, neither encouraged nor distressed. My father was now a peripheral figure in my story, no longer its defining force. As Christmas approached, we held a small dinner for our chosen family. Our home glowed with warmth and laughter. Lily passed from loving arms to loving arms. After dinner, Liam proposed a toast. To family, he said simply, not just the one we're born into, but the one we create through love and choice. To family, everyone echoed. Looking around at these people who accepted me completely, who saw my strengths and weaknesses and loved me anyway, I finally understood the lesson of that painful promotion party a year and a half ago. What had seemed like an ending, the final rejection by my father, had actually been a beginning. By standing up and walking out with Liam that night, I'd taken the first step toward finding my true home. Rocking Lily in her nursery, I studied her perfect face and felt a peace I'd never known. "You will never have to earn my love," I whispered. "It's already yours completely and forever." In that moment, I realized I had given myself the same gift, unconditional acceptance of who I was, separate from achievement or external validation. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were still difficult days, but I had found my way to a truth that had eluded me for 32 years. I was enough. I had always been enough. The sound of laughter drifted from the living room, and Lily's tiny hand gripped my finger with surprising strength. This was my legacy now, not my father's disappointment, but my daughter's future. Not a path dictated by someone else's values, but one I was creating with each authentic choice. What's your story of finding freedom from toxic family expectations? Have you ever had someone stand up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too are enough exactly as they are. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from what hurts us toward what helps us heal.